Welcome to the War Business Podcast, hosted by Matthew Bruneman, the author, Brendan Clark, your consigliere for all things war, and Dakota Maynard, the Appalachian war wizard. War is a business. Some would even call it a racket. Every modern war and every business has a carefully crafted marketing image. The War Business Podcast breaches that veil so you can hear the real stories of the average Americans who fight our wars and drive the war industry forward. Our mission is to tell the stories of conventional warriors, let the captains of the war industry share their endeavors, and inform the listeners of current global conflicts. All three hosts served in the United States Marine Corps and hold well-informed perspectives of war and war business. This concludes your introduction. Stand by for the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, devil dogs and jarheads, infantrymen and engineers, barracks bunnies and skaters, welcome to episode 4 of the War Business Podcast. Today we are taking a deep dive into the book Matt wrote, War Business, The Hired Guns of Helmand Province. Flexing his high IQ, Matt wrote this nonfiction and somewhat homoerotic book recalling how extremely handsome his recruiter looked in his dress blues, his time in the Marine Corps, and his 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan. Before we begin, Matt and Brennan, did you two ever share the same sleeping bag in Afghanistan?
Yes.
Classified.
I mean, yes, that's classified. I meant to say yes, as in yes, that is classified.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I fucking knew it. Well, super good book. I've gone through it a couple times. It's kind of like Forrest Gump, where, it's a really good movie the first time, but then you watch it again, and it's an even better movie. Like you pick up on the little details. A lot of words in there, book full of words. There's a lot of them to think about. And so when you do it a second time, it's even better.
The third read through, you're like, there's no fucking way this guy played ping pong in China, That's how the book was for me.
Yep. I mean, I guess it's weird to say I've listened to the book too, so I didn't narrate it. The publisher hired Terry Shepard, and he did good, but this is probably awful to say, but there were some times when I was listening to it, I was like, fuck yeah, whoever wrote that was good. There's some lines in there, there's some turns and inflections in the story that, he did good reading it. I was proud of him, proud of myself.
That Terry Shepard as the narrator was peak, dude. You couldn't. I had followed Terry Shepard on Twitter forever ago before that, but like you couldn't pick a better voice. It's listening to that dude. It was like a book that I had never read or seen before. Listening to Terry Shepard narrate it, it was insane. He did a crazy good job.
Yeah,
it's such a good book that I tell my wife it's historical fiction, so she doesn't think Matt is cooler than me. I'm like, yeah, it's all made up. It's fake. Matt really was never that cool. No, I like your book a lot though, Matt. I use it as a flex too. I tell other people, I'm like, yeah, my friend wrote a book.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Grateful to have lived a life worth writing a book about, and I hope my son does that. Maybe not, hopefully not about war, but for him, it's probably going to be like dinosaurs or something. But
yeah, or he's gonna
who knows?
Become the best Stoker Condor shooter in the world and write a book about it.
He's got some big shoes to fill.
He's gonna take that out of Matt's cold dead hands if he ever wants to crack that condor.
Yeah, we should have a shoot off between us. Like you bring your condor, I'll whip out my condor. We go to the sporting clay range and just see who the king of the condor is.
Let's do it.
That'd be fun.
Let's do it.
I'll keep score because I'm not gonna shoot either one of your dildo ass condors.
Because you're not cool enough to have a condor.
I have a fucking. You're right. I'm not cool enough to have a Stoker Condor, the Timu over under of shotguns.
A shotgun is kind of a shotgun. Mine has a bad rattle to it, so I think it could scare away animals, but it's a good gun. Good gun. All right, before we're getting a little bit sidetracked here. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into Matt's book section by section. Not really giving the book away. You just got to read it. Um, Worth the read. I think a lot of people consider it to be one of the best GWOT or Global War on Terror memoirs ever written, or is some of the feedback about the book. I agree. Not that I am a big book reader, but it is a slapper of a book and probably one of the best books I've ever read. It's not Red Badge of Courage good, but it's pretty damn good. All right, so let's start with the prologue. The prologue of your book kind of lays out how we got there into Afghanistan. Some things I noticed about it was that basically Afghanistan was war torn for decades before we ever even got involved. So they had fought their war against the Soviet Union, emerged victorious from that, never really had peace after that. So then they start tribal infighting for several years, and then eventually the Taliban rise to power in what is it, 1996?
94 is when they start officially. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then just rising to power.
And so they're basically fighting other tribes and winning in the southern provinces of Afghanistan. So they're originally what out of Kandahar province.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. And so they do that. Don't really fully defeat the tribes up north, which eventually become known as the Northern Alliance.
Mm,
It
the Northern Alliance is predated the Taliban, but they did not defeat the Northern Alliance.
they do mostly control the country. They control the capital, um, and I guess control the government of the within the land borders of Afghanistan somewhat.
So control would have to be defined here because let's take Helmand province, for example. The people that live there could give a shit about the government. They were their tribe. Um, and actually, Afghanistan really has never had peace. I mean, you can even read books or stuff about Alexander. It's just always been tribal infighting. So there was never peace, and the people there, they don't care whether they are Afghan or whatever. They are their tribe, and so to say the Taliban controlled the government, it's like, yeah, sure, they whatever you want to say the government is and whatever control is, but yeah, they are a dominant power, but it's not like they were withholding social security checks or, pension funds, anything like that.
Were they recognized by the UN as a formal, as a nation state in that period of time?
I I don't know.
I can't remember if they were. I'm thinking they weren't, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't recall. The people wouldn't have
The
whether they
Afghans didn't
were
give
or
a
were
shit.
not would not have had any impact on the day-to-day lives of the people of Afghanistan.
Yep, and one of the fatal flaws of the Taliban is allowing Al Qaeda to basically use Afghanistan as training grounds, which is believed to be where the majority of Al Qaeda was training their basically terrorists to conduct jihad against the rest of the world.
Yeah, so the Taliban commander or the founder, Mullah Omar, he was a very prominent Mujahideen fighter with bin Laden. Bin Laden being a Saudi Arabian who, after um, the Soviet War, he, starts Al Qaeda and whatnot. So actually, Mullah Omar, the leader of the Taliban, he was interviewed by the BBC in 98 or something like that, and they asked, um, why are you sympathetic to bin Laden? And he said bin Laden is like a chicken bone in my neck. I can neither swallow him nor spit him out. So he was, indifferent. And I mean, bin Laden was also working with other tribes in that northeastern part of Afghanistan uh, before we invaded.
And Bin Laden's kind of like that rich kid that's just up to no good. A lot of these rich kids just get up to no good. And his dad had a lot of money, and I believe funneled a lot of money to him in Afghanistan, which we never did anything about that, to the best of my knowledge. And Saudi Arabia kind of never had anything or any repercussions for their involvement in 9/11. One thing I thought that um, could have been elaborated on in the prologue, but probably would have made the listeners upset is the Taliban by December of 2001 were mostly defeated. The Northern Alliance and B-52 bombers had basically beat the shit out of the Taliban. I know they were trying to negotiate some type of deals with the United States, which were ultimately rejected by the United States, by, I believe, George Bush himself, um, because we wanted revenge. And so we go into Afghanistan basically to kill everybody that had been involved in some shape, fashion, or way with supporting Al Qaeda or anything, or anybody that had involvement with Al Qaeda, there was going to be hell to pay. But for the most part, by December of 2001, the Taliban is nothing.
That's true. So this would make the listener, the reader, upset, but our invasion legitimized the Taliban. So this is post December 2001 when we've effectively made them null and void. Once we went into Afghanistan and started the war, the ground war with conventional troops and whatnot, effectively every person who wanted to shoot at Americans, we dubbed them as Taliban. So you have all these different, jihadi tribes and factions and whatnot, and they were just under the banner of Taliban. That's what we called them, but not all of them were. So, flash forward 20 years when we pull out of Afghanistan, the only reason why they are in power is because our 20 years of war legitimized them as, hey, we here for the Taliban, we're here for the Taliban, and then I guess the Taliban are the big, wearing the big boy pants of Afghanistan, even though their pants were pulled down in late 2001.
Yep. In 2001 is a new era for America. So we are in the global war on terror. Kind of vague, which comes back to bite America in the ass a little bit. But it's just a new chapter. And so we have Iraq and Afghanistan at the beginning of the global war on terror. Later, I believe you mentioned it, Syria, Yemen, they get added into the mix a little bit. It's just a new chapter for America's is this global war on terror. And a large chunk of it is going to be fought out in Afghanistan. And if I'm not mistaken now, the GWAT ribbons are done, right? They don't issue
Yep.
GWAT ribbons. So are we officially out of the global war on terror?
That and they don't issue the National Defense Service Medal.
Damn. Imagine you get out of boot camp, you got nothing.
Nothing.
You might get a good cookie.
2025, you got nothing.
Damn. It's tough out there for Marines. Hard to get medals in the Marine Corps. Just gonna throw that out there too. Like Army, you get like four ribbons coming out of boot camp, so you look stacked. You're picking up all these chicks at these bars with your boot camp stack, and the Marines are getting out of there. You might have, rifle expert if you're lucky. Imagine you get pizza box and that's all you got. That'd be tough. So Afghanistan, super tough geography. I just touched on a little bit in the prologue. We're talking Central Asia here. The eastern part of Afghanistan is basically butted up to the Himalayan mountains, so where the Indian subcontinent has rammed itself into Asia, you have mountainous terrain, particularly in eastern Afghanistan. Then where you are, um, in the southwestern region of Afghanistan, it's a fucking desert.
Just a
Um,
flat desert, nothing.
with a little bit of a river that runs through it, the Helmand River. It's a deeply religious country. Um, for those of you that did not know, Afghanistan identifies heavily with their religion of Islam. Very impoverished nation. Poverty like Americans have probably never seen before.
On the eastern side of the country where Kabul is, it's they have some sort of the niceties of Western civilization, like running water and schools and whatnot, but everywhere else, it's just tribal land, like what you would think of Native Americans in the 1800s and before. It's just that they just live off the land, live live by the water, and that's, I mean, running in the river was basically as far as their technology advanced.
Just the toughest hell country to live in. And some of the things that happen in Afghanistan are like earthquakes. You all might have been too far west to experience it, but you ever feel an earthquake while you're in Afghanistan?
I don't recall.
No.
I mean, like every year though, I think you see a headline on it, like they'll have like a 6.0 earthquake and the infrastructure is so bad it'll kill hundreds of people, whereas that might be a little bit more survivable in a more developed country. Flash floods, as of recently, when you live in the mountains and valleys and it rains hard, you get flash floods, extreme heat, which I know you two are very familiar with, and then also drought. So it's just a tough country to live in. Now, you talk about it in the prologue a little bit. So NATO forces, it's not just the United States becoming involved in Afghanistan. So we have the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and who else is there in Afghanistan?
Germans, Estonians, Georgians, Australians, just bunch of people, bunch of different nations that, I mean, they really didn't have a choice. It's kind of weird that NATO was sent to war in Afghanistan with NATO, purpose of NATO being to defeat the Soviet Union, and then you have NATO forces in Afghanistan fighting cavemen.
You mentioned a little bit about this in the prologue too, but basically the military landscape is FOBs, so forward operating bases, COPs, and patrol bases, basically everywhere, correct? So maybe every town or every other town has some type of small outpost where NATO forces are involved in those areas.
Yes, so we could take this back to the Mujahideen fighting the Soviet Union. So their tactics, the Muj tactics, were to put up a resistance and then break contact, and that's on like a grand scale. Like, hey, we're gonna defend this city till we can't defend it anymore. Then we're gonna pick up our AKs and our sandals and go to the next city. So then that's what they were doing. That's the way the Taliban were fighting us. So as NATO forces would pursue the Taliban into different cities, districts, provinces, our forces would remain behind. So there would be a friendly position from basically chasing the Taliban. And then with, at least for Helmand Province, part of there's patrol bases everywhere. So in Marine Corps doctrine, it's a patrol base is something you're going to use for 24 hours. You're going to strong point this area, this building, whatever, for 24 hours and then break up shop. But for us, they were indefinite. So as long as we're going to be there, there was going to be a patrol base. I mean, these were even like 10 by 10 boxes made of sandbags and 2 by 4s with chicken wire on the front so grenades couldn't get dropped in. And two Marines would do their whole 6, 7 month deployment living next to each other in this two-man structure, this patrol base. And then you'd have these, every couple 100 meters apart. And then when you get to a higher echelon of force, you'd have a combat outpost. When Clark and I were there, we had about 90 or so Marines on combat outpost, Pennsylvania. And then above that, you have FOBs, which just hold more, and you have more, gear, assets, things like that. And then camps, I guess, would be the next one after that. And the camps can get up to, I mean, there's thousands to tens of thousands of NATO forces on a camp. And the presence just gets bigger and bigger. I don't even know how many people are on Bagram. I know there's something like 40,000 people on the base in Kandahar, the Kandahar airfield. It's huge.
And so this is basically the coin doctrine in practice are these small outposts littered throughout the entire country that combat operations are performed out of, correct?
Yep.
And we're looking at a very similar thing in Iraq too. Somewhat of a similar situation from Vietnam, so it seems to be almost out of the same playbook of how we're going to conduct this counterinsurgency. So your prologue just sets the stage for how you get there. America's at war, global war on terror, and then we get into chapter one. Chapter one is called Bolvac Shakes. It's almost a little bit of a flash forward in time. So we get a flash forward before we get how you got there.
Yeah, Buldak Shakes, that just was a creative hook. So, like you're saying, it was the end of my last deployment, second deployment. Very intense part. So I put that in the very beginning of the book just to kind of hook the reader.
And you start out kind of saying how it had broke you mentally. It's touched on a little bit, but you and Brennan both were extended for 90 days. You thought you were going home. You're now extended in Afghanistan. And on top of that, I think you're going to one of the worst places that you had been. Would you think that's fair to say Bolvac was probably the worst of all the places that you had been in Afghanistan?
The worst place that I had been, yes, definitely not the worst place in Afghanistan.
That's fair. You had spent over 500 days in a war zone and you're always on edge. And I know that's just tough. When you spend so long with your guard up, it just really wears on you mentally.
Yeah, for sure. So I called it the Boldak Shakes because I was starting to have visceral reactions. This is after day 500, and before I'd go out on patrol or come back from patrol, I would just like my hands would start shaking. I would kind of hyperventilate. I had no idea what anxiety was or PTSD, anything like that. I just thought I was losing my fucking mind. And then the fact that I was the only sergeant on this patrol base of like 12 dudes. I don't know if I would have told another sergeant I was feeling weird or whatnot. But everybody else was a junior enlisted Marine. There was a lieutenant there, but everybody else was of lower rank than me, so I wasn't going to talk to them about it. And I was the only intel guy out there, so I didn't want to look like a big wiener or something. But there were a couple Taliban forces in the Boldak area, so it was at Patrol Base Boldak. Two different Taliban cells operating, one of which was just a direct fire cell, so they would engage us with small arms, and the other one was an IED builder and emplacer. Their team would put bombs in the ground. So yeah, I was just always on edge. Everybody was on edge all the time. I mean, you're just being out, you don't know what is an IED or what isn't an IED, and then a lot of gunfire. But in particular, it was this sniper, this Taliban sniper. He just messed me up for I think so. I'd been blown up once in Kajaki before I got to Boldak. I didn't like that, but that wasn't as much of a concern as that sniper. I mean, snipers are just menacing on the battlefield. I had always heard that and believed it, but being on the receiving end of that was that yeah, that was way different. So he really messed with my head. It was like, I don't know, 30 45 days of this guy trying to blow my head off. And I don't mean me specifically, like I'm the big victim here, but me being the intel guy was always talking to the Afghans. I also carried a backpack that would intercept Taliban radio communications. So that was a bit of a target. And then just the fact that I'm the guy talking to Afghans makes me even more of a target. So he just had his work cut out for me. And I mean, he would engage us, his team would engage us with AKs and PKMs and stuff like that. But it was the sniper that just messed my head up. Just you'd be talking to an Afghan and then he shows up for work. And yeah, it was rough.
And so you talk about that messing with you. You talked a little bit about guilt that you're feeling at that point in time too. So you're feeling guilty for the Marines that had lost their life, or Marines or corpsmen that had lost their life before that point. So that's also weighing pretty heavy on you at that time.
Yeah, for sure. So because I had already been to Afghanistan, I was the only Intel Marine in 1st Battalion, 1st Marines to have been to Afghanistan. And since Bravo Company was getting the worst or the best, the toughest mission of our battalion, they had sent me to Bravo Company. So I was the lone Intel guy there. And we had, one of the squads for Bravo Company was getting rocked pretty hard throughout the entire deployment. I don't know, they probably had 5 or 6 guys um, get blown up like throughout our 90 days in Kajaki. And then um, one IED strike, it ended up killing a corpsman, Doc Beecham. Uh, was something that was particularly sinister about that was the guy who put the IED in the ground. He had actually daisy chained 6 IEDs together, and he intended to blow up the entire squad. But only one went off, the rest low order detonated, killed the doc. So I had a lot of, guilt racked up for that. Like, hey, maybe I should have been permanently out with them, that type of thing. You just, how could I have, he exploited our intelligence gaps. All right. And part of my job is to fill those gaps, close those gaps. So it's like this guy bested Bravo Company and de facto bested me. So I was feeling guilty about him dying and the rest of the Marines out there getting blown up. And it wasn't guilt like, oh my gosh, this is my fault. I should have this, that. It was just I'm here for this purpose. And then, previously during that deployment, I kind of was resolved to there's no point in us being in Afghanistan. This whole mission is ridiculous. I just we just need to come home. That's all that matters. So it him dying was just like I didn't really fail our mission in Afghanistan. It was I failed my duty to Bravo Company.
Understood. And I know you feel like that, and I think that's a very Marine thing or very military thing where you take personal responsibility. There's always something that you could have done better, but it wasn't solely on you. You were just one of many layers of defense and security for the men. So there's plenty of other ways that this IED could have been found. The Taliban, probably at this point in time in the war, are so used to every way that we could detect them placing IEDs that they know how to perfectly exploit it, probably in the cover of darkness, in a sandstorm where they can't be seen, and they place IEDs. And it was basically their main tactic towards the end of the war because you're not really going to win a firefight against attack helicopters or just Marines in general. But as I'm reading this as somebody that wasn't there, I understand your guilt, but I hope you understand like it wasn't just on you. There's thousands of things that could have gone differently, that could have prevented that, just in my opinion.
For sure.
Yeah,
I definitely agree. I mean, if I had died out there, I wouldn't want anybody to carry guilt at all. So, yeah, and then, hey, I raised my right hand and signed up, and so did Doc Beecham. So I completely understand with what you're saying.
And so you talk about Doc Beecham quite a bit in your book, and I have questions for you later about it. Question for both of you. So when Doc Beecham is killed, is it an oh shit, this could happen to me kind of moment? Or was that already like understood? Or is like the Doc, when Doc Beecham passes away, what are like the thoughts of this? Is it like I was saying, like, oh shit, like this could have happened to me? Literally, I could have been there. Or what's the thoughts and feelings around that?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, it was just a fucking shitstorm in the operations center, given the circumstances. Everything is like every communication from a guy who's got boots in the sand to any sort of asset that would be able to get a better intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance picture of the battle space is it has like three middlemen, and I was smack in the center of that middlemanning process, managing information flow from one side to the other, with my responsibilities in the command operations center. And so for me, initially, it was just like I have a I have a actual checklist of shit that has to be done, and I have a checklist, a mental checklist of bullet points that exist in the gaps between those bullet points to do the best possible version of information management, to sort of handle or manage this situation. And then as far as like psychologically, I don't think there was a minute in from the time I got to Kajaki. I don't think there was a minute where I was like, yeah, no, I'm totally safe here. I mean, the day, like I said in a previous episode, like the day I got there, Matt greeted me and I was like, why are we all kitted up? And he's like, we're expecting to be overran today, probably around dusk. And then my next question is like, why is there a big grease stain in the sand? He said, oh, that's where the ANA were. But they pulled up stakes on their tents last night and abandoned us. And so, I mean, from minute one of me being in Kajaki, psychologically, I mean, my fucking hair was just standing on its end. And it was, we wouldn't go, I don't know if we went 36 hours, surely we didn't go 48 hours without getting some sort of communication. And again, I was in the center hub of communications in the operations center, so I heard every bit of it. But we would get some sort of communication saying like, "Hey, go ahead and lube up because the pounding is coming right for your ass today." I mean, it was like every 36 hours or something. We would just get some devastating intel like we were about to get totally steamrolled. And so psychologically, like I think it was in everybody's brain housing group the entire time, like this could happen. And so while, none of us weren't shocked that Beecham was the one that got killed. We weren't shocked that somebody was grievously. He wasn't our first person to be grievously injured or killed. He was our first person. He was our only person in the company to be killed, but he wasn't our first person in the company to get fucked up. And so we were always cognizant that this happens, and it's if the time function of this graph goes long enough, it's my turn at some point. Even me as a dumbass pogue, mostly relegated to the command operations center with relatively very few times outside of the wire. Like if this scale gets long enough, dude, it's my turn too.
So the impact or what happened with Doc Beecham, part of the oh shit was it was exactly 1 month before we left. It was, hey, we already passed the halfway mark. Got 30 days left. We're pulling out a good jockey. We're going back to Camp Pendleton. And then so I was in my rack. I was in the tent sleeping when he was killed, when the IED went off. Someone came, woke me up, told me, we have a missing Marine. You need to go to the COC. So, like, what the hell's going on? Go in there. This is, I don't know, 5, 6 in the morning. The company executive officer, the company XO, said, hey, we have a missing Marine. I need you to get a Predator over here now. But don't tell anybody. Don't tell battalion that it's because of a missing Marine. Just get a Predator. So I'm trying to chat with battalion to get a predator and whatnot. A little bit later, it comes out, okay, what happened was an IED went off. The squad made it back to the patrol base. They did a head count after the IED strike. They thought they had all personnel. They got back and realized someone was missing. So I don't even know if we got the Predator or if we got like a Scan Eagle or something, but we got some sort of drone UAV to get out there. And that patrol base had a few snipers embedded with them with that squad. The squad leader on the patrol, his brain was just super messed up from the event. So I completely understand why there was a wrong head count. Everybody was just cognitively not there. So the snipers kind of took point in going out to where the IED strike was, and then they found Doc Beecham in the canal. And I don't go into how grievous his wounds and death were, just out of respect for him and his family. But the entire squad did a debrief. They did a handwritten statement of what they think happened. The company XO gave me those debriefs to essentially investigate, like, hey, what can you learn from this? What intel, whatever, what's going to be useful? What happened? Paint a picture. So we were working through that. As far as my psychological impact, I was just like, hey, I begged to go on this deployment. I got back from a year in Afghanistan. There was one slot to go for this deployment. A couple of us asked for it. I got it. So it was like, hey, this is what I asked for, type of thing. Like it's real. I was always outside the wire. Really, we just wanted blood. Like we just wanted vengeance. So yeah, I didn't feel any more or less in danger. It could have happened to any of us.
And you had not been blown up yet at that point, correct?
Correct. That was 1 month later.
Okay. And then Bolvac happens after this too. So the things that are adding up to your shakes, though, so you do get blown up on your way back to Camp Leatherneck, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, last patrol. There was just a few of us left at Combat Outpost Pennsylvania and Kajaki were the last dudes out.
Then does it become a little bit more real, like, oh shit, my ticket might be punched?
Not quite because one, my head was just fucked cognitively, but also it was we're going home in 6 days, 5 days, or whatever. So it was like, hey, the Taliban were just saying goodbye type of thing. So I was just like going home anyways.
You get to Leatherneck, Camp Bastion is attacked. You both are extended for 90 days. You go to Bolvac to the south of Leatherneck to help bolster the defenses of Leatherneck, hold these guys accountable. You start encountering the sniper, right? This is the first time the snipers work in you. You mentioned that you have your radio on it. You talk about it specifically later on. Your job also is like to work with the captured Taliban. And so you're just doing your intel job, you're taking sniper fire, then is that when it's, oh shit, my ticket really might be punched now.
Yeah, so it was when we went to patrol base Boldak. It was 10, maybe 12 Marines go to patrol base Boldak. And we go to relieve an artillery squad there, and a couple of them they had EBRs. And we're like, why do you guys have some sweet guns? Like, we just have M4s. And then they start explaining this sniper, and they needed, some more, what do you call it? Just beefier guns, bigger guns, but heavier caliber weapons for this guy. So they had gotten their hands on EBRs. We didn't have that, but that was kind of when it was like, okay, this is really weird because the reason why they're sending me down there is there's zero intelligence picture whatsoever out here. That artillery squad didn't have an intel marine with them. There was no village elders to be friendly with. They didn't know the sniper's name. They had a call sign for the IED commander, and I mean that was the extent of the intel picture there. So I get there, see that what they're up against, what type of gear they have, and then that we have zero. Going from 0 to 1 is the hardest thing to do. We had zero intelligence picture, don't know where to go, who's friendly, who's not. So it was just got dropped in to a shitstorm and figure it out. So that's when I was like, all right, this is not good.
And so you also just look like a good guy to shoot from the picture that you're painting in the chapter. You're the one that's talking to the locals. You've got the Wolfpack radio on. Were you also carrying an M4 at the time?
Yeah, M4 203, and then a biometric device to scan fingerprints and irises, keep track of the local Afghans.
I'd have shot your ass if I was out there scrapping, dude. I'd have been like, that's the guy.
Oh yeah.
Were were the rest of the Marines carrying M16s like basic, you know, E3 or like did everybody have M4s?
Everybody had an M4s.
There
Okay,
was
sounds good.
IARs. There was M4s and IARs.
Yeah.
Sounds
The
good.
headquarters and service company had some M16s in the mix. I had an M16 because I was from H&S, but if
Got it.
you're organic to Bravo Company, you got an M4 or IAR or I guess a 240 or an M9.
That's what I was thinking about just from my Marine Corps experience being in the engine or as an engineer. Officers, initially it was just officers and staff NCOs carried M4s. And I was always thinking like that's who they're gonna shoot. Like you see everybody else carrying an M16 and you know you don't wear shiny ring obviously in a combat zone to give away who you are or you don't salute in a combat zone as well. Um,
Unless you don't like the guy.
yeah.
If you don't like him, go ahead.
No,
Hey.
it reminds me of Forrest Gump too. Like when they show up and salute Lieutenant Danny or Danny, he's like, "Fucking quit that." But so you just looked like a good guy to shoot to the sniper from everything you're doing, assuming that he's watching you. You've got some gear on that probably looks pretty important.
It was the gear, the way I would have conversations, and then what I was saying. So, the way I would connect with the locals was by taking them aside, just me, the interpreter, and the local. If you can get that Afghan away from the rest of the squad, give him a little bit of plausible deniability, he might be more likely to talk to you, give you some information so the Taliban wouldn't come kill him or his kids. So there was that. And then I was always asking about the sniper, wanted info on the sniper. Then, but for the ID builder, we had known his call sign and we knew that he only had one leg because a few years before that, he got fucked up by some cobras. He got his legs blown off by Marine Corps cobras. He got one of his legs blown off. So I was always running around asking for Koshal, but my MO was because of the grift in this war, I leaned into it. So I told them I would tell the Afghans, hey, I'm from the Civil Affairs Group, and we have about $100,000 that we need to pay out of guilt for, shooting his leg off. That's why I'm here. Can you guys help me find him? So it was just, I had the same kind of spiel for that, working with that guy, and then just the way I talked to the Afghans, and then, yeah, the gear I was running.
Question for Brendan, then I have a question for you, Matt, that I was going to ask you later, but I'm going to ask it to you now. Brendan, first, could you work on a wolf pack? Was that something you fucked with?
It wasn't something I was like authorized to work on because they're the grift. It's turtles all the way down, dude. It's grift all the way down. So you'd go to take these wolf packs apart, and they have like certain screws to disassemble them have paint stripes on them. And so if you unscrew it, it'll either the screws are epoxied in place, and so they know you broken a seal and it voids the warranty.
That's what I was gonna
It's
ask.
literally so Harris, well, I guess Harris then, L3 Harris now. It's literally so L3 Harris could make sure that they were the ones being paid to maintain these things, and not some dude with a soldering iron. I could work on a ThinkPad. Our XO managed to break his ThinkPad in the most caveman ass way possible, and I fixed that for him with a pair of needle nose pliers and like I think it was a pair of needle nose pliers and a freaking
Some bubble gum.
a paper clip. I literally a paper clip and some needle nose, and I fixed his laptop. And then he was like, "Anything you want, Clark, anything." And I was like, you get me back home out of this deal." And he was like, All right, be serious for a minute. And I was like, you have no idea, Your Honor. You have no idea. Anyway, he gave me 6 Standing Rock energy drinks. If you know, you know. The Squaw Piss energy drink is what we called them. And my God, they were so good. So good.
And he had a air conditioner in his hooch.
Oh,
And what
yeah.
he would stick, if there was an air conditioner around, you would stick your water, those energy drinks inside the vent to cool that down because we didn't have any refrigeration out there. So he got 6 cold Standing Rocks.
You have to imagine like the duality of being in Afghanistan because day to day, we're in the business of killing. Uncle Sammy's give us a letter of marque to go shoot people in the face for a living. But I get 6 cowboy cold standing. I was gonna say ice cold, not even close. Cowboy cold Standing Rocks, and the first thing I do is giggle like a schoolgirl and run to Matt and our senior line corpsman, give each of them a cold energy drink, and it's like the first day at the public pool when it opens in the summer. You're like, oh, dude, I forgot how good this is. Like a bunch of boyish children.
All right, Matt, the question I'm going to ask you now, what are the odds you met the sniper face to face?
I think about, I would think about that often. I'm probably pretty good. I mean, he
Damn,
had complete anonymity, probably pretty good.
damn.
There was, before I'd gotten pulled off the line, I did find a one-legged Afghan dude that I had suspected to be the ID builder, but I couldn't pursue that.
Damn.
Surprising amount of one-legged people in Afghanistan, though. They be losing legs like starfish lose legs, except they just don't grow them back.
So one thing I thought in this chapter that was funny, you're getting sent to Bolvac and you don't know anything about it, even as the intel guy. And I was laughing because I thought that's such a Marine Corps thing. You know, you're the last to know, but first to go. And you just go and you show up and you have to deal with it. But I'm sure that added to the stress of the situation of being there and you're like, what the fuck is this place? And then you're trying to piece together things on the fly.
Yeah, so I mean, just being down at Boldak, Clark, what did we have, like 40 or more dudes get blown up coming in and out of Boldak? Like coming,
We ran out of mine rollers. We had so many vehicles hit IEDs that between that and like the 3 that just got broken from vigorous look, man, sometimes it gets NASCAR in the Mat V. But the 3 or so that had been broken from NASCAR in them, we ran we ran Camp Leatherneck out of mine rollers with how many got blown up. And granted, we shared them with our partner forces, the Jordanians. Take a quick moment of silence for the Jordanians that never learned how to wear a seatbelt. Okay, moment of silence over. It was a almost daily event where it's like, hey, got to send a wrecker out. We got another MRAP, another MAT V, and it would like A-frame them. Like they get hit, and something about how the energy of the explosion goes through them. Most of them vehicles like A-frame, to where it's like MRAP, mine roller, MAT V, mine roller, and they're A-framed up in the air, just hung up, and they got to go get the wrecker out and pull them back down. But the mine rollers did not protect the troops in the cabin, in the troop compartment of the armored vehicles from grievous traumatic brain injury, but it did for the most part protect them from physical, injury to their extremities or their face or chest or whatever, if you're wearing a seatbelt, because the Jordanians that were not wearing a seatbelt, they got A-framed like that. We had to use a water hose to clean that MRAP out. It was pretty gross. It was what I call super yucky.
so we had every day, every other day, every 3 days for sure. Squad is getting blown up. So this is also weighing on my guilt, compounding while I'm at Boldak. Like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm getting nowhere. These guys are getting fucked up. Effectively, we're only going out on patrol for me to go talk to people, build relationships, whatever. So it's uh, yeah, a lot of guilt was being just stacked guilt and being like bad at my job. Why are we even here? This is pointless. Obama said the war is over. Like we're going to be the last people in Helmand province. Why are Marines getting ball? It was just, yeah, a lot was weighing and then intermix, running through AK fire and PKM fire with the sniper pinning me down in a compound. Just, yeah, it was just weighing on me.
Like as the reader, it's obvious that it did. To me, it seemed like the mission to Bolvac was pretty much impossible for you, for any of the Marines. And it seemed to me like resources weren't being allocated to even make you successful. That all these things are going on, and I'm sure it's weighing on you, and I feel like it's all on you. But to me, it seems like the big Marine Corps could have done a better job to support you. The federal government could have done a better job to support you in your mission when all these things are going on and it's so close to Camp Leatherneck too. You would think the resources could have been allocated to make you successful down there. But I guess maybe, and maybe you can elaborate on this, but maybe because the war is drawing down, they don't necessarily want to allocate these resources to
Yeah,
you.
they're moving over to Syria and Yemen to start those wars. Saudi Arabia was doing a big bad thing in Yemen, so we're helping with that. Syria, U.S. forces were partnering with Al Qaeda to fight ISIS. It was just, yeah, it was super fucked. But we had a G-Boss. That was our only intelligence asset. So it was a camera that would run up like 30, 40 feet. We'd have that at the patrol base. But patrol base Boldak was in like rolling hills. So your field of view is obstructed by the hills. So putting an IED in the ground is super easy. You've got tens or hundreds of square miles of rolling hills and only 12 Marines out there. We don't have the force presence out there to, be a deterrent. We can't be outside the wire. In fact, when we'd go on patrol, sometimes there'd only be four of us, just a fire team going out. It was, yeah, there was a lot of mismanagement. I wouldn't say mismanage it, but yet we didn't have the resources necessary. Asking, for a Predator, Reaper, or something like that, like fucking good luck. No way.
Can I expand on, or I don't know, give some more granularity into the context on that? Is that for our extension, so the Obama election in 2012, and this sounds like woo-woo type shit. This is real. This is the shit that affects the dude on the ground. Like, I don't know, believe it or not, fuck you if you don't believe this. This is what happened. The election in 2012 was predicated Obama's promise, like we're gonna get the Marines, we're gonna get the troops out of Afghanistan. Fucking right before the election, the Taliban comes in and slaps the foreskin off the PP of the Marine Corps on Camp Bastion. Deadlines an entire squadron of Marine Corps aviation, fixed wing, close air support aviation, AV-8B Harriers. This is a couple of deep breaths before the election happens. Meanwhile, the British Crown Prince or whatever you want to call him, Prince, not
Harry.
Harry, it was William, wasn't it?
Harry.
Oh, it was Harry. Okay. So not the Crown Prince, the spare prince, the British spare is on the ground in Bastion when the Taliban breaches the wire because security's a joke, because we're getting ready to pull out of Afghanistan, destroys an entire squadron, an irreplaceable squadron of Harriers. The F-35 is not ready to come in and they're not buying any more Harriers. To get Bravo Company extended was the last thing the White House wants to do. We're gonna stop pulling Marines out of Afghanistan? Not a chance, dude. This is not the White House of FDR where he's like, and granted, dude, I spend a lot of time at the Wax Museum flipping the FDR mannequin, the bird, but we're at 1944. FDR would have been like send 10 million more Marines or whatever, transatlantic accent, you know. Um, this is the throw in a fit Hillary Clinton Secretary of State, Barack Obama White House. saying we're going to get our way, whether you like it or not. We're different with a capital D. And to extend Bravo Company in country was like, I'm sure the commandant of the Marine Corps hated going to the Pentagon every day, for fear that he had to answer to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs or whatever. But and then to ask for those Marines to ask for more support, are you out of your fucking mind? We don't want them there in the first place. The White House, the Pentagon, all the collective stars on the shoulder boards and shit don't want those 90 Marines there, or 100 what was it, 160, 150 that we kept for the extension?
No, it's like 90.
It wasn't that many. We don't want them there. So why would we give them more assets, despite the fact, yeah, well, we don't want to bring attention to the fact that we just got both of our eyes blacked in Helmand right before the election. That would have been like a target for, who was it, Romney? It would have been a target for Romney to shoot arrows at in the last few days before the election. It would have certainly swayed some opinion. And so, like, I have never heard anybody talk about the attack on Bastion outside of our group. I've never heard it brought up ever outside of our group. And it was a big fucking deal. When I say it was a big deal, I mean it was a big deal. It was the highest ranking Marine killed in action in Afghanistan in a long time.
And
I
the
think that
most costly attack in all of the war, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably. An entire
Oh, big
squadron
time.
of Harriers went down. Like, it
Yeah.
cannot be overstated. That is an extremely expensive mistake.
And that's super important context. And I think this is leading up, basically, Matt, you're going to get blown up 2 more times, is what's going to happen.
Skill issue, bro.
And
Skill issue.
I don't think skill issue. I mean, I do feel sorry for you because it's like, our government's so fucked up. There's just,
This is they said we're going to get our way,
yeah.
whether the dipshit sergeant that makes $2,500 a month is better or worse for where we're going to get our way, which is to provide minimal support because you assholes are not supposed to be there because we're supposed to get reelected in 2 months.
Yeah, votes over anything. If they don't get those votes, they can't line their pockets. So you get blown up 2 more times, Matt. Let's go through that. The next time you get blown up, how do you get blown up?
It was at night. We left some Taliban dude, or not Taliban, some Afghan dude's compound. I was chatting with him, coming back in the evening. It goes from, dusk to dark. We're getting pretty close to back to Patrol Base Boldak. And then the lieutenant comes on the radio and tells us, hey, we just saw somebody putting an IED in the ground. We want you to pursue. So we, like, okay. So mind you, we're four Marines. Like, we'd go out in a fire team. Sometimes we do some bigger operations, like 30, 40 of us, but it's just us four. We're in a MRAP. Um, the lieutenant says, I've marked, we see him on the G-Boss. I've marked. Clark loves this story. I've marked where the IED is on the ground. You guys are going to go up, drive up the road. I'll tell you when to get off the road, and then you're going to bypass it, can get back on. So we're rolling with a MRAP and a mine roller. And he says, I don't know, I think he sees your headlights or something. He's leaving now. He's running west to a compound. So I guess as he is, I'm speculating here, but as the lieutenant is watching the Taliban run to the compound, he loses track of where he marked the IED in the ground. So he tells us, okay, you bypassed it. Get back on the road. As soon as we get back on the road, the mine roller hits the IED. Wasn't that big of a deal. It didn't even. The mine roller was still. I think it was still functional. Anyways, we get out on foot, and then we go foot mobile. We go chasing this guy into um, compound, and because of the way positive identification works, we go into the compound. There's only one guy in this fucking compound, but he did not pop positive on the biometric device as having historical IED building historical history. So we had to let him go. And if it was during the day using just EO electro-optical cameras, and we could have seen what he looked like and his clothes and gone in and pulled the same guy out. We could have brought him home. But because it now switched to night, we lost positive identification. So we had to let the only guy in the compound that the Taliban ran into, we had to let him go. Um, so we just, got back in the MRAP and went home. And then
I'm Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I went into the little COC we had on Patrol Base Boldak, and I probably watched that video like 50 times of us getting blown up.
I'm listening to this whole clusterfuck unravel on the radios on Camp Leatherneck, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? We just drive them. You know, that Taliban guy was like, I can't believe that. I didn't think that was going to work. I can't believe that worked. I did not think that was going to work. Like, wow. And
Did
I
you
got
know
away with
Matt
it.
was in the Humvee or in the MRAP?
Yeah, we heard every time a patrol went out, they would call and give up the patrol card. We tracked every patrol that was out on like a
What
whiteboard.
percent worried were you that Matt had just been pink misted initially?
Oh, no, they would have been. It would have been a absolute flurry of radio traffic if that had happened. I would have known immediately.
Are you close enough to hear the explosion?
No.
Okay.
I think what happened to the mine roller was these mine rollers had like four sets of like four. You ever seen the wheels on a, oh my God, like a mower deck that would go behind a tractor?
Yeah, I know what a mine roller looks like. Yeah, I'm tracking.
So it was one of the banks of wheels was what got blown off. So it was riding on a tripod, Vice's four sets of I think four wheels or whatever. So it wasn't like gratuitous damage to the mine roller itself. I think we ended up reusing that mine roller in its sort of diminished capacity whenever we tore up or blew up too many other mine rollers later on, a month later or whatever, or 2 weeks later.
Break, break, break. Time for a 5-minute gear check, boys. This would be a good time for you to like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and we would really appreciate it. Don't forget that we want to interview veterans, so reach out to us if you want to have your service documented. Let other veterans know too. You guys can use the comment section, our socials, or the podcast email. Find us and follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Substack. And go buy yourself a copy of War Business, The Hired Guns of Helmand Province. You can buy that on Amazon or through the Wargate store. If reading isn't your forte, then we've got you covered with the audiobook. Thank you for listening to this episode of the War Business Podcast, and we appreciate all of your support. Let's get you back to the episode.
So you get blown up the second time. How many days pass until you get blown up the third?
Like 5.
I'm sorry to laugh, but
Killing you,
Jesus
bro.
I was
Christ.
just working super hard out all the time. It's like, it's not like a point of bravado. It's like that was the only reason why we would go out, was to generate some sort of intelligence picture. So if a squad was going out, I was with them. We were going out. That's just how it was. So just, yeah. And then once again, intermixed in all of this is that the Taliban sniper.
Tracking the sniper. Give us the story, if you don't mind, about the third time getting blown up. How's all that go down?
I had met with this Afghan a few times, started getting kind of friendly, thought he could, become a source. Like the first time I met with him, the Jordanians that we had with us had, they they would piss in water bottles and just like chuck them out of the back of the truck, and they threw them at this guy's compound. So I'm in there drinking chai with a guy or whatever. We get done. I'm like trying to build a relationship. Come out and there's piss bottles outside. So I opened up the back of their MRAP and I unscrewed all the caps on all their piss bottles and I threw them at them inside of the back of their MRAP, which, later the Jordanians were super pissed off about that. So that was bad. But anyways, keep going to this Afghan's compound a couple of times. Finally, I asked the guy if we could talking about Taliban. I don't remember if it was about the ID builder or the sniper. But he said I don't know, he had to go off to like a Rotary Club meeting or something. So he said, come back tomorrow. So we left that night, came back, and then the next day we roll out early morning to go to this guy's compound. I rolled out with a different fire team this time, and they ended up taking the exact same route that we took home, is the route that they took to this guy's compound. I'm just looking out the windows in the back of the MRAP, and I can see that there's usually the pattern of life is off. There's usually people walking around doing, Afghan things, kids asking for water or flipping us off or whatever they normally do, but everybody was gone. Nobody was out there. So I told the driver, no, the team leader, so the vehicle commander, I told him, I was like, hey, I was here last night on this exact same route. Something's gonna happen. There's nobody out here. I was here last night. Just keep your eyes open. And it wasn't 10 seconds later, it hit another IED. This one just fucked the vehicle up. It was K-kill. All the radios were broken, pieces were blown off or whatever, radios were broken, so we didn't have any way to communicate with anybody. So we ended up sending up a flare, sent a flare up, and then I don't know, somehow, some way, just what do you call it? A couple of Cobras had come, and they were able to speak to us on whatever the inter squad, not the inter squad, not the black gear, but whatever smaller radio patrol leader would have, the little piece of green gear that he could speak with air
152.
assets.
It's a 152. There's probably it's SINGAR, so it's not encrypted, so you don't have to be on the same like crypto freak as them,
Right.
crypto setting as them.
So that guy was like, hey, you guys see if there's your fire extinguisher or are you activating your fire suppression? Looks like you got like the front of the vehicle's on fire or something like that. Um, but I think it just had blown up the fire suppression system in there, made that explode inside. And then I don't know, we just strong pointed a compound and waited for like 2 or 3 hours for someone to come pick us up.
So they pick you up. Do they take you back to the patrol base in Bolvac? You get evaluated, and then they send you back to Leatherneck, or how does all that go down to the point that you, or take us from that point
Yeah.
to where
So
they're saying they're going to send you home?
so we get back to Boldak. Been, I don't know. I don't know how much time went by. I don't recall, but at some point they said, you're done here. You've hit the congressional limit for how many like brain injuries or IEDs you can hit in a 1 year period. So you're off the line. So the next set of trucks leaving, hop on one, come back to Leatherneck. Yeah, it must not have been that much time.
The plan was set that day. I think because that was before I came in the COC that morning. It was like that was like as a night shift we're winding up, and so I think when we all got briefed up on, like the company commander was there. I swear that dude just like lived there. But anyway, we started planning to get you and to get you out there and to get your replacement Roberto down there. Roberto, the force multiplier.
Yeah, so they did send a Intel guy replacement down there, and he went on one patrol, and then they sent him back. The squad down there was like, this guy's gonna. I think they called him a gear bomb. I don't know, but um, he got one patrol out there, and they said we'd rather just get blown up on our own. We don't need an Intel guy out here.
1 to 10, how concussed are you? And what injuries do you have? So I assume this third and final IED that you hit was probably the biggest one yet. Is that fair?
The third one was EOD said like 40 to 60 pounds of HME, the homemade explosives. I was pretty concussed, but I was also like at the end of my rope anyways, just like mentally, spiritually. I already had disc issues in my back, so it's just, I guess, a good time to be pulled off the line.
So you get pulled off the line, you go back to Leatherneck, and they say you're heading home. Like right then, correct? Like time to get you back to the States. Were they gonna send you like as soon as possible before you say don't do that?
Yes, but it wasn't me saying no. It was our company commander saying we're going to keep you out here. He didn't say it this way, but it's like, you need to come home with the boys. Don't go back by yourself type of thing. So I don't know how he made that happen, but they kept me there. And so I was just going to the doctors on Leatherneck instead of leaving
Got it.
Afghanistan.
But you wanted to come back home with the boys, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk a little bit in the chapter about how much it sucks to be pulled off the line, basically, and that you really didn't necessarily want it. It's how I interpreted it. And I think that's like such a good Marines thing. You see this often in the Marine Corps where when something happens to like a good Marine or like they're injured or whatever, like they don't even go to medical. Like they just don't want to leave the platoon or whoever they're with. They don't want to leave. Oftentimes they have to be forced um, to go get the medical treatment or anything like that. So I thought that
I
hit home.
at that point I was an honorary member of First Platoon because in Kajaki at the last month of Kajaki, it's just always rolling out with First Platoon, firefights with them, stuff like that. And then a squad from First Platoon was at Patrol Base Boldak, and I was just one of them as much as an outsider could be. So it was just, you know, didn't want to leave the boys. Like, and again, it was there's no intel picture out there. So sucks for them. So now it's they keep getting blown up. They've been, and then it's 100% me leaving. Not that I could have stopped it, but it's 100% certain that they will continue to get blown up.
So chapter two, title of chapter two is Back to the Beginning, kind of like back to your beginning, even before the Marine Corps. Initially in the chapter, you hype up the Marine Corps and the Marines, and you give the reader basically like a taste or you set the stage for what Marines are. I thought it was good. I think you left out how smart retarded Marines are. Like, we're so smart and so retarded at the same time. Probably didn't want to insult anybody when you wrote that book, but I thought you did a good job of just like explaining
Uh,
the
so
Marines.
Dan Carlin in the Hardcore History, one of his episodes about the Marine Corps, he talks about, and this half is true, this part is true, how people, even so civilians and other, what do you call it, services, they just think Marines are dumb. And we do give them cause to think that for sure. But like Carlin says, he doesn't think he's ever met a dumb Marine. Like they're always pretty smart.
Some of the smartest guys I knew were also some of the dumbest. It was just a almost you got to be there to know. I was probably one of them, not the most high IQ individual myself. So you talk about always wanting to join the military. You'd been doing things like airsoft, paintball, like almost getting yourself ready for the military at a young age. I also did the same thing. I think Brenda did the same thing too, like shooting BB guns, maybe sleeping outside. I was always watching like military documentaries or war movies. You talk about Saving Private Ryan. I love that shit. Like I was so young, like watching that on repeat because my dad had it on VHS, and I'd be watching that shit over and over. Like,
Wearing the tape out.
yeah, probably, like as a young kid, you probably shouldn't be watching that, but I don't know. I always wanted to be in the military too, so that hit home with me. I did have a question though. If the military never happened for you, you didn't end up joining the Marine Corps or any branch for that matter, where do you think you would have ended up?
I can't even answer it. All I can say is just be sad and pitiful.
That's fair. I think I would have too. All my friends from back home got on crazy hard drugs, ended up dying, some of them from drugs, or did so much meth that they're basically retarded now. Um, this truth, I mean, it's you can't do meth for years and not have some type of implications for that. But yeah, it's just a question for you. I think I would have too. I would have been in bad shape. My life that I have now I wouldn't have a fraction of this
Yeah, I
had I not
can't
joined the Marine
imagine
Corps.
it, and I don't even want to try.
I would say given what I know, what I've seen from people is the realist answer is it just would have taken me longer to get to a recruiter. And I think the same thing for Matt. And the same thing for Dakota as well. Just like maybe by the time you got to a recruiter, they would have said no, you did too much stupid shit, you got too many felonies, whatever. It's the same as time scale goes long enough, it ends up in the same place. You would
Yeah.
have struggled through college and best case, struggled through college and got a commission. Most realistically for myself and probably for Matt as well, got a couple of semesters worth of student debt and then enlisted or joined the guard or something. And then
Yeah.
for Dakota, I don't know, probably
Oh,
I see like a trailer house without a window in the bathroom and a Fox Body Mustang that doesn't run in the yard, and then a recruiter's office trip.
yeah. The trailer and the Mustang don't sound too bad, honestly. You do talk a little bit about coming from a divorced family, and not sure how much you want to talk about it, but so your parents were divorced, correct?
Yeah.
I think the irony is so were mine and so were Brennan's and so were most of the Marines that I knew. And so you said that in that chapter there, and I was thinking like the Marine Corps has a fucking type. Like all the things that you had done, I'm like, shit, this is a little bit about me too.
It's almost 2 of 1. Like you talk to Marines. If I recall being surprised when Marines would check in and like, yeah, my mom and dad live in Pasadena. Or like, what do you mean your mom and your stepdad? No, my mom and dad are married. What is that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah. God, it's like the Marine Corps has this type of individual. You also mentioned that you wrestled for a little bit. So did I. God, that is just the gayest sport. There's just no way. And
I had a good time
I hated it, honestly, but I mean, it was the hardest sport I ever did. No
for sure.
question about it. Conditioning for wrestling was 100 times worse than conditioning for football. It resonated with me a little bit there too. You said he graduated high school from Clovis, California, and the only thing I could note about that is it's not as cool as Clovis, New Mexico. You don't have Clovis points, so a little bit of an imposter there. But how was it? How was Clovis? What Clovis West is that right?
Yeah, that's the high school. So it was great. I mean, as far as quality of education, it was really good. I think I said this in my interview episode, but I didn't realize how good of an education it was until I met other Marines. I was like, oh wow, Clovis Unified School District really is pretty good. Had a huge class, I don't know, 500 or 1,000. If you told me 1,500 graduating class, it wouldn't surprise me. It's huge school, huge district. You could do Olympic diving, wrestling, badminton, just shit ton of sports. A lot of opportunity. They have a golf team. Yeah, it was good. Good education. I didn't care for it, and I don't. I guess I got a 2.0 since I graduated, but wouldn't have been much higher than that. I just, yeah, dicked off definitely sophomore, junior, senior year.
I knew it was fancy when you said Clovis West. Like in my simpleton brain, I'm like, damn, they got a West High School. Shit, maybe a
Yeah.
North, South, East too.
They have a Clovis East, Clovis West, and Clovis North.
Damn,
Fancy.
fancy. Yeah, it's secretly a flex. That's where you meet your super handsome recruiter in his dress blues.
That's
I felt
right.
like you elaborated on that a little bit too much. It
I
did get,
elaborated on the dress blues, not on his handsomeness.
That was not
yeah.
talking about his handsomeness,
Yeah,
huh?
That's
wink,
right.
wink. Those dress blues. I mean, were they just fitting on him like tight or
Of
like,
course.
Mm.
damn?
He would have passed an inspection for sure.
Here's a little known secret. Whenever Matt joined the Marine Corps, like sergeants and stuff hadn't been issued dress blues at boot camp. So that dude's dress blues were more likely than not probably perfectly tailored for him. Because at that point in like 2000, assuming your recruiter joined in like 2004, perhaps, he got issued alphas and he got issued green trousers for his service Bravo and Charlie uniforms. He got issued service alphas, which is a green coat, the pickle suit, service Bravo, extra pair of trousers for that, which is the khaki long sleeve tie, green trousers, and service Charlies. He was not issued dress blues out of boot camp. They had to buy them. They didn't start issuing dress blues out of boot camp until what, like 2006 or 7? Some of the guys that raised me when I was a baby boot had not been issued dress blues, and prior to 2011, probably. Whenever I think it was 2011 when they said if you weren't issued dress blues, this is the year you have to buy them. You have to have them by now. So prior to 2011, there was a lot of dudes in service alphas at Marine Corps balls because it was either or. If you weren't issued dress blues, they couldn't make you wear them to the ball. That was the prescribed uniform, but it was not mandatory.
The uniform looks cool when you're not in, and then when you're in, it's such a fucking pain in the ass.
It's
Like, I mean, you're getting promoted, you got to take it to the
Mama
tailor
San.
or yeah, to Mama San in Okinawa, or you got to get your rank put on. And I always had bad luck. I only went to two Marine Corps balls. We were always doing something or away somewhere. We never did a Marine Corps ball, so I felt like I was keeping up with those damn uniforms for nothing, spending like my little money that I earned. A question for you about your recruiter, Matt. So you speak fondly of him, like he's a good guy. Did you have any issues with firing machine guns later in the career? I know the ditty for the sustained and rapid rate for machine guns is my recruiter lied, my recruiter lied. Was that hard for you?
I was never taught that. It was always we were taught die motherfucker die.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one too. We were taught my recruiter lied. Either way, I mean, it gets the job done.
Yeah.
But it seemed like you had a pretty good recruiter, which is rare.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Which is more rare, a Marine that had a good recruiter or a Marine whose parents are married still?
Married
Do
still. I had
do the
two
math.
good recruiters. I can't talk shit on mine. I was a punk ass kid in high school, and had I missed one more day of high school, I was going to fail. And basically, my recruiter picked me up and dropped me off from school or dropped me off at school and picked me up from school every day for like 4 months to ensure I graduated.
I
So
would to devil's advocate to play devil's advocate for that. I would say that was out of sense of self-preservation for your recruiter. They had to get those numbers, big dog.
probably because there weren't that many folks coming out of Crossville, Tennessee, but we only had a Marine Corps and an Army recruiting station next door to each other. And they did poach me from the Army. Basically, they're like, the Army's gay. You don't want to do that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to be gay. And then I joined the Marine Corps. Um,
You, I don't want to be gay. All roads
yeah,
lead to Rome, brother.
I
All roads lead to
know.
Rome.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the Marine Corps does have some of the better recruiters. You do hear some wild stories about my recruiter promised me I was gonna be a fighter pilot, and it's like, man, you're the idiot, really, for believing it. I think you hear those stories here and there, but Marine recruiters seem to be okay. You have this heart issue, Matt. I think you didn't have enough of it, and so they don't take you the first time.
Yeah. So I go to MEPS and they said I had a heart murmur. So they sent me back home packing. Then the recruiter was just like, hey, we can get you a waiver. You can try. Go to your pediatrician since I was 17. Go to your baby doctor and get some justification, have them check out your heart, and we'll submit that with a waiver request. And they did, and then MEPS entertained it and said, okay, come back up to MEPS and you're going to see some private contracted doctor out here to do some sort of wasn't an EKG, I can't remember what it was, but they said, yeah, you do have a heart murmur, but you should be good to go. And he said, just like have your heart checked every 10 years or something like that. But
Did you have to go to MEPS twice?
3 times,
Did they look at your brown eye all three times?
just the once,
Okay,
just,
that was you didn't mention that in the chapter, and it was a question I had. I mean, imagine you got to go through that three times.
I mean, you both went to MEPS twice, so you go
You go
to
to get checked
sign.
out,
I
and
went I
then
went 3 times. I went for the D lab as well. I went for the
Okay,
initial, the D lab, and then the last one.
okay, I only went twice. Once to get checked out, and then when it's time to leave for boot
ship
camp.
out. Yeah,
Yep. Not to steal your thunder, but when I went to MEPS the second time to go to Paris Island, there were like 12 of us, and we took a van from Knoxville, Tennessee to Paris Island. There were 12 of us. There were only like 10 seats. So two of us had to sit on the floor, like no seat belt or anything. And then we rotated every time we stopped. Um, Unfortunately, like my last good meal before boot camp was Shoney's. We stopped at a Shoney's. And man, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to enjoy Shoney's. There's a reason why they aren't around anymore, but try to make the best of that. But yeah, we took a van, and then when we arrived on Paris Island, I was the guy on the floor sitting next to the door. And so the drill instructor rips open the door, like he's gonna do, and he just grabs me and throws my fucking ass out. And so he's like, "Get over there!" And like I'm on the ground, I gotta like hurry up, and I'm like standing on the yellow footprints. I'm the only one there, and he's like ripping everybody's ass that's still in the van, and then they all get out. But that was like my first Marine Corps experience was getting yeeted out of the van. All right, so let's go into chapter three. Chapter three, the title of that chapter is Intelligence. Let's get into your MOS school. First question I had for you about that one is, did you have to get a waiver to be in intelligence without intelligence?
Good joke. No, no, they gave me the pass. I got the nod from the director of intelligence himself.
That's
Actually, what
Nice.
had happened was General Amos came back in time and said, I want to meet this guy in a couple of years. Put him
Yeah.
in, coach.
or meet this
No,
hard
I'm just
dog.
kidding. You scored better on your ASVAB than me. I think, yeah, I mean, obviously you're smarter than me. You wrote the book. Just giving you a little bit of shit there. So you do your MOS school in Virginia. For me, I thought that was lucky that you got to do that and you didn't have to go to an MS or your MOS school on like an actual Marine Corps base and have to deal with that of being like just the newest fucking boot. And so like everywhere you go, they're like roasting your ass. Like you'll be at the PX like just trying to get a snack and like some Lance Corporal that's already in there is just like fucking ripping your ass or like calling you a boot. And I was like, oh God, you hated to leave your barracks room.
That's just how the Marine Corps is. I didn't have that to your extent, but just even the dudes that were there, the platoon before us, so they've been there 30 days longer than I have, and they're like, "Hey, boot, get out of the
Oh
way,
yeah,
boot." Like that's
of
just how
course.
Marine Corps is.
Gangway third phase.
That's right.
Yep. I thought that was interesting though. And there's several MOSs in the Marine Corps that you don't go to a Marine Corps base to do. I know artillery's one. I think the Marine artillery guys have to go to Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken, and do their arty school. Some go to Missouri. I had to go to Lejeune. Brennan went to 29 Palms, but I know that's like it's not lucky. It's just part of what it is. It is what it is. You go to an MOS school, maybe from a different branch or but were your instructors Marines or were they Navy?
They were Marines for sure. So one I had a male and female. The female instructor was the sister of one of my drill instructors.
Small Marine Corps.
Yeah.
One of the highlights of the chapter here, you're talking about dodging trouble. You had some folks that looked out for you. You do find that in the Marine Corps, every once in a while you have somebody look out for you, or sometimes you'll just have people that'll roll right over on you and fuck you over, some Blue Falcons or what they call or what we called them. I thought that was good for you in a way, from my perspective, for you to have to dodge trouble so early, because it teaches you early on in your Marine Corps career like how to get out of trouble, or like stay out of trouble. Do you think
Well,
like that was a good intro of like, fuck, I better watch out, or like I just need to be better at getting away with shit?
okay, so what had happened was our class had two or three uh, lap movers. So these guys were on their second enlistment. They whatever job they had, they are now going to train in intelligence. So we're all brand new Marines, and then you have these four or five sergeant lap movers. One of them had hooked up with a female new Marine, and
Classic,
she claimed that he had raped her.
classic.
Classic. So, because we were all drinking there was like multiple parties going on in different barracks rooms. It's Friday night or whatever. So, um, my room, we had a party in my room, and because I was underage and whatnot, the company gunny or school gunny, whatever, he wanted to inspect my room. Uh, Stupidly, I had a beer bong that I did not secure in my wall locker, and the class instructor was like rushes into the class, pulls me, my roommate, and one other Marine out. Uh, Pulls the three of us out, and then he's like, "Hey, what? I just found out that Gunny so and so is going to go inspect your room. Do you have anything in your room that he could find that's not secured or whatever?" And I was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "No, seriously, tell me right now. If you do, I'll go to bat for you." I said, "Okay, yeah, I we have a beer bong out on a table or something." So the third Marine that he sent, that he called out, he had me give him my room key, and he sent that third Marine sprinting 2 miles to my room, cleaned it up real quick, and he talked to the gunny for a little bit. Then the gunny marched us over to our room, and he read me, my roommate, our rights right outside the door, read us our rights, and then walked in, and lo and behold, it was clean. Um, but before that, so when I wasn't in the Marine Corps, when I was in high school, I was on was at a debate tournament, and a kid got teabagged that night.
Literally?
Literally teabagged. It was a freshman, so I don't know, a
Damn.
sophomore had teabagged a freshman. I was the senior ranking guy there. I was a junior, so I was the oldest kid. So I got in trouble, not as much as the kid who did the teabagging, but when I got pulled into the learning director's office, he hands me a sheet of paper and says, "Tell me everything that happened on Thursday night on this date." And that's all he said. So I effectively pled the fifth, and I wrote out the storyline of the episode of Walker, Texas Ranger that I had watched that night. It's like, this guy isn't telling me what he wants me to write, so I'm not going to cop to anything. So I had learned pretty early, I guess, to finagle my way out of trouble. But flash forward back to at the Intel school. So yeah, that our class instructor. I mean, how fucked would that guy have been if the gunny found out that he had helped clean up our room? Uh, I would have been in trouble. The what do you call it? My roommate, the other Marine that went and cleaned our room, and then our class instructor. I mean, he probably would have got NJP'd or something.
Oh, no doubt. Angry senior enlisted, out to step on dicks or whatever that sergeant major told you that one time, Brennan.
Nut smashing time.
Oh, nut smashing time. When they get their mind made
Oh.
up, look out.
They put their nut stomping boots on, and boys, all bets are off. Dad gum.
Yep.
Rat boots.
A little bit that you talk about in the chapter, is like talking about like going to the fleet. That just reminded me of whenever I was in MOS school, and I know this is like this for every Marine. Getting to the fleet is like the most mythical. It's nerve-wracking, it's exciting, it's like the great unknown. So it's always like when you get to the fleet, when we get to the fleet, like what's the fleet gonna be like? I'm sure you all went through it too. Correct me if I'm wrong here. It's just like, oh
Oh yeah.
sh yeah, it's a big fucking deal. You're going to the Fleet Marine Corps. You are out of MOS school and you are going to go to a unit.
My schoolhouse was so long that we just, you know, like a month or two into Marines awaiting training platoon, we still haven't picked up into a class. We just abandoned all hope. We're like, I guess we'll get there when we get there. Be a couple of coyote bites and a trip to friggin' Harris Teeters between now and then.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
the
always
the fleet yeah, it has that mythical connotation. This is it. This is the big leagues. There's no more training. I'm gonna get that GWAT.
Oh
ribbon.
yeah,
Like
like we're
that's
going to war.
yeah.
It's the great unknown. And you don't know where you're going for a long time. And then when you get those unit orders, your heart's like pounding. You're like, oh my God, it's gonna happen. And then for me, I went to go piss when they were sending like your wish list sheet around at MOS school. And so I come back and I'm like, here, sign this. And I signed my name onto the overseas duty station wish list. So I
Oh
got
yeah.
combat assault battalion because I had to piss. All right, so chapter 4, the fleet. This is the funniest shit to me. Um, because you get there and it's a bit of a clusterfuck. Um, oh my God, same happened to me. Probably happens to everybody. When you show up, you think that the people that are running things are smart. Like you might have a sergeant, and little do you know, he's the dumbest motherfucker. He's just in that billet because he needs to be out of sight, out of mind, so he doesn't fuck everything up. So you run into that a little bit, and then your quasi UA. Welcome to the Fleet Marine Corps. You aren't even where you're supposed to be. Such a Marine Corps tale of things. Sums it up perfectly.
Yeah. So the we check go to Camp Pendleton. Me and one other dude from the schoolhouse. We show up. He's going to 1-1. On the orders, it says 1-1 RS. My orders say 1 RS. So the sergeant at main side was like, "Oh, I'm driving you both to 1-1 RS." And so he just dropped me off right there and said, "That's where you're supposed to be. Go check in there." Or maybe he walked us into the admin shop or whatever, the S1, but took us both there, and the battalion started checking me in, gave me a meal card, barracks room, SIF gear, showing up to work for a few days. I had no way to know otherwise. Just I think it's important to stress I got a meal card in a barracks room. I was where I was supposed to be.
Yeah, you didn't know. I mean, you're just a fucking new guy. You don't know.
PFC,
Yeah,
private
hell
first
yeah.
class
Got your
E2.
got your mosquito wings.
And then the intel chief at 1-1 was like, "Oh, I thought I was only getting one Marine. I guess I'm getting two."
Oh, I can't believe it. Got 2 foot applied to one. Hello,
Yeah,
retard. Look at your inbound roster.
yeah.
Oh
So
man.
he was like, "Oh, they must have made him I don't even know." Yeah, he was like, "Oh, good. This is great. Even better."
Yeah.
Knowing Intel like staff NCOs, he probably made some corny ass joke like, I guess the boots are multiplying these days, and then like laughed at himself and then looked around for validation, got none, and then went back to whatever dipshit stuff he was doing on his computer.
The uh the regimental intelligence chief ended up firing that guy a few months
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, I believe that. He probably was 7th Engineer's Intel chief whenever I got busted down and sent to the Intel section.
Man, getting to the fleet though is just such an adventure. We showed up on field day. So we're like buffing the floors in our alphas,
Yeah.
all this shit. And we like show up at night and they're like, everybody's drunk as fuck, field day in and oh yeah. And I'm like, here we are, it's like 8 of us brand new PFCs and every NCO is 3 sheets to the wind drunk. They fucked with us so hard.
Showing up to an operational, like a, not like showing up to like a deployable combat unit after hours when you check in is like checking into a fucking trailer park. It's like
Yeah.
everybody is so drunk. There's somebody dangling somebody else off the third deck ledge, and then there's like a pizza guy screaming at a door that closed and didn't pay him or something. And you're like, where the fuck am I?
Yeah, and so we had buffed the floors there for a while and then we finally were able to go to our rooms. We're in our room for 2 minutes, get a knock on the door. It's this corporal. He's like, "Hey guys, I'm just here to make sure you're good to go with everything." And we're like, "All right." And he's like, "I just want to make sure you guys got all your gear and everything." And he just opens up my buddy's sea bag, dumps everything out, and opens up the hygiene kit, and he finds like this little cheap electric razor. It like, the kind like it's like got a guard on it. It was blue. They were pretty popular at the PX. You like fold it down, it like turns on, and you can
The
shave real quick.
bumblebees, dude. They're called bumblebees.
Okay, yeah. So my buddy had got one of those, and he's like, "Did they issue this to you?" And he's like, "No, Corporal, I got that on had the PX on Foster." He was like, "What the fuck?" And then, dude, he dumps out all of our shit. We had gotten laundry detergent. He's pouring laundry detergent on our floor, and it was like, I mean, we didn't sleep the entire night because our room is wrecked. And then the next morning, we hadn't even slept, and I have to go be witness to an NJP for a Marine who tried to commit suicide by jumping face first off the first deck.
Hell yeah.
That was my welcome to the fleet, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is what have I done? What an adventure!" But the rest of the chapter just kind of talks about that. Anything you want to elaborate for chapter 4, Matt?
Maybe just on the intel chief from regiment. So that was the unit I was supposed to be at. This dude had been like meritoriously promoted to every rank that he had, meritorious gunny. He later would be the only intel Marine to ever be a sergeant major. But he checked in to the regiment like a week before I did. And he went and before he actually had to turn in his orders for checking in, he went and like went undercover in the intel shop and just wore his alphas. So there was no name tape because his name was already on the inbound roster. So he just went into the intel shop just to ask some questions to see like who's retarded, who's not. Do they let people in without having their clearance checked, and just did his undercover work. But then yeah, he came and picked me up from 1-1, and that was pretty fun.
You guys remember this? Like you're a brand new boot in the fleet, and so it was like this for us. Woodlands in the wintertime, and then deserts in the summertime. Was it like that for y'all? And then goddamn woodlands and black rank. You can't tell what anybody's fucking rank is, and you don't know anybody. And you're a brand new boot, and you're like, good morning, Sergeant Major. And it's a fucking sergeant, and you're like getting your ass ripped, and you like just can't catch a fucking break any day.
Yeah, but like by the time I picked up, probably by the time second year corporal or something or sergeant, I just stopped trying. I would just say good morning because
Yeah.
like I would fuck it up, and it's like I'm getting anxiety, getting stressed out from this dude who's still like 30 yards away trying to figure out, is that a rocker? Is that a diamond? Are those rifles? What's going on here? Like, good
Yeah.
morning.
I
Yeah.
deliberately would buy camis from the PX that did not have a giant black spot on the fucking collar. Like just to do everybody a favor. Not that I looked like I was old enough to be a fucking master guns or a gunny or anything, but motherfucker, why would they do that? It was like the worst uniform design and the rank on the collars,
That's not the
always.
worst uniform design. Don't get
Oh
don't
no, no,
outkick
the
your covers,
Army's
buddy.
fucking the Army's
The
what is it?
ACUs,
ACUs,
the
my that
blueberries, the Navy's blueberry uniform that they had for a little while was just sheer fucking stupidity.
that one, two things about those uniforms. The Navy. Why would you want a uniform that blends in with the water? Say you fall overboard, motherfucker, you are fucked. You better hope they have some type of thermals or something or like bright orange.
Even if they have thermals, dude, if you're like in the North Atlantic and you fall in, they're just not gonna see your ass.
Yeah, I don't, and man overboard. I won't go into it too much, but one time we did a man overboard drill and they used rescue Randy dolls. It's like this 200-pound rescue doll. And one time we did a man overboard drill and I went like 3 hours. It's supposed to be over and done with in like 15 minutes. Like from the time the helo leaves the helo carrier and picks you up, like they should have the man retrieved within 15 minutes. And it was like man overboard, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And that rescue Randy doll had got ate up by sharks. And then the
Ooh.
fucking army came in at engineer school. There would be some army cats that would go and train for whatever reason at Courthouse Bay. I'm sure you probably saw them a little bit there. Brendan, but their camouflage did not blend in with anything other than porta shitters. Like they would stand next to the porta shitters and you'd lose them. You'd be like, where the fuck did they go? And then, they'd walk out a little bit and then they'd be in the grass and you're like, oh, there they are. That was like the worst fucking uniform of all time.
Yeah, ACUs, yeah. What is it, Advanced Combat Uniform or something stupid.
Supposed to
That
be
was
for
that was a
Iraqi,
sorry.
supposed to be for like Iraqi gravel or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a that was a Pentagon War thing where the contractor ripped the government off, and like originally they were like, no, dude, it's great. This is universal. This is camouflage universal, but it was just the contractor getting a fat paycheck to shake shit up. The Marine Corps, the general consensus is that Marpat is the penultimate digital camouflage that was ever adopted. Um, but I mean, like, you look at the competition. You have the ACUs, whatever those are. Then you had the Air Force Tiger Stripe blue things. And then you had the Navy Blueberry. If I fall in the ocean, don't even call man overboard. You're not gonna find me. And then all the dudes that were doing seriously hood rat shit were wearing Woodland M87s anyways.
The
Yeah.
Army did redeem themselves with the multicam, though. I think the multicam looks sick. All right, we got a little bit sidetracked there about chapter four. All right, so chapter five, title of that chapter is Time to Deploy. The main thing that stuck out to me in this chapter is when you're talking about the gunny sickle. Um, that later on becomes a manufactured thing that the Marine Corps adopts, and we use it. I know Brendan's used it, and it's just a big telescoping pole to find wires,
Holly
pretty much. Yep.
gunny sickle or holly sticks.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yeah,
that,
I think it ended up being like a fiberglass, telescoping fiberglass rod.
yeah,
Yeah.
turned
Yeah.
out to be a pretty good idea, but in the moment, Marines are improvising or doing things, but it's such a good idea that the Marine Corps is like, yeah, we better do something about that, and so they did it. You're supposed to lay down when you use it, though. Telescope it out, and then you lay down and you drag it back. That way you don't get exploded. Um, you talk a little bit about Obama in that chapter. And my note was like the timeline Obama lays out is so counterproductive. And you I think mentioned it too. Hey, we're gonna draw up and then we're gonna draw right back down. Such a bad idea to have a commander in chief that was never in the military. We really fucked that one up.
There's that, but I mean, do you really think he wasn't discussing this stuff with the Joint Chiefs?
Oh, I'm sure his yes men hand selected. But I
Yeah,
mean
so
that
the
was
issue with that was there's two issues. Well, I'm sure there's a lot, but two main issues. You cannot say you have to win the hearts and minds of the people in 2 years. That's, that you can't limit it to something like that. So it has to have been like, hey, we're going to be there until the hearts and minds are won or until the Taliban win. Um, but so that was an issue, was just saying, go for, you have 2 years to get this done. You can't do counterinsurgency like that. The second issue is the fact that he said it publicly just made our job in Helmand province impossible. So, hey, we need to win the hearts and minds of the people, but now the people know you guys are leaving in 2 years. You've already been here for like 10. What makes you, why should we trust you, help you now, and be at risk of the Taliban killing us for helping out? So, um, it just made it fruitless.
yeah, it was impossible. Um, which is really the theme for Afghanistan throughout the entire war is just politicians making it impossible to win.
Well, it's insane to me that Obama puts like a timeline on it when the most well-known Afghan idiom is like they have the clocks, but we have the time. They've been saying that since the British were there in 18 dude. And Obama's like, I'm different with a capital D. I know more or whatever. It's like, you don't know fucking shit, dude.
Yeah, he really fucked that one up. Nah, it just didn't work out. He did everything I think that he wanted to happen. He surged the troops. The Taliban waited us out, and then we left. And I guess the rest is history. Not to discredit anything the Marines or anybody in the military had done from any country in Afghanistan. I mean, when you're there, I'm sure you're trying your best, but fuck, your
Yeah, that's
leadership
exactly
really,
right. You're exactly right.
really fucked you there. Great idea. Thanks, Obama. Those were the main things I wanted to talk about for chapter five. Matt, anything you wanted to elaborate about that chapter or elaborate on that chapter?
Yeah, so this was the first deployment. So this was in 2010. This is when Helmand Province is going to be taken. The purpose of taking Helmand Province was to win the war. That's what General Stanley McChrystal had said. Like, hey, all of the weapons get smuggled in through Helmand. Fighters, Taliban commanders, they get smuggled in, and then also opium gets smuggled out as it to generate cash. So that's why Helmand Province became key, or that's what they thought was key. So we start in 2010, and then when Clark and I were there later in 2012, we were the last Marines in Kajaki, and we tore that place down. So yeah, kind of saw that come full circle a little bit. But if I would encourage the listener, the viewer, to watch the movie War Machine on Netflix. It goes into why Helmand Province became what it was and why it was important, and all the politics leading up to it. Obama did absolutely did not want to send troops, did not want a troop surge because of his election, and General McChrystal had publicly embarrassed him, which is why Obama put that, what do you call it, the timeline on it. And then he didn't give enough Marines. I think General McChrystal asked for 40,000 troops to take Helmand Province. So he got, 10, 12,000 U.S. Marines, and the rest of the troop personnel were made up from different NATO forces like Georgians and just other countries like and non-NATO. So we like Clark had mentioned we had Jordanians out there too, but a lot of this was just like, hey, you will send some troops. So for the Georgians, they committed troops, but it was contingent upon those troops never leaving the wire, never leaving the base. So they were just, troops on paper type of thing. And then with the Jordanians, they're Arabs, so they go out there, but they don't speak the same language as the Afghans. So they were just cannon fodder getting blown up, and like Clark mentioned, getting scooped out of, the back of MRAPs, but they couldn't do anything. They couldn't speak the same language. What are they there for? It was just, troop commitment on paper, but you can see a lot of the political underpinnings to that in the movie War Machine.
Our terp for the Jordanians was, I don't know, it's probably what, late 30s to mid 40s, somewhere in that time, somewhere in that age group. Spoke Aramaic. This is, I guess, Jordanians speak Aramaic or something. I don't know what she told me. 350,000 a year to interpret for the Jordanians were the most useless assholes I've ever worked with. Them maybe they got some crack troops that are freaking war dogs or whatever, but the ones that we Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Marine Corps, 1st Marine Regiment worked with in 2012 were they were the embodiment of the tits on a boar hog. Their company commander or whatever, their highest ranking officer. We had a rule, no smoking inside of the command operations center, because it was a fucking plywood building that had been sitting baking in the sun and becoming more flammable for years or whatever. And he just didn't like that rule. We had to cut the lock. He had a lock on the outside of his door so they could lock it when he left. And he had his dudes lock him in there so he could smoke cigs in his office while we were all in there. And like, you smell that? The company commander's like, you smell that? It smells like this. smoking a cigarette in here. We had to cut the lock off of his office and swing the door open. And he's like, "Ugh, like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? We got like two rules. Like, wear your seatbelt and don't smoke in the COC, bud." And it just ended up like I had to do a lot of their radio installs on their vehicles. And they were like, "We can't get our radios to transmit. We can't get our radios to transmit." This is what the linguist or the terp or whatever was telling me. They were saying, "Sure." So I'm like, "All right, well, here, we'll put this radio. This is our radio. We know it works. Hey, what's up? This is me. This is you, whatever." And like, we'll put it on the same frequency and we'll see if we can do the thing. Like, okay, outside of the vehicle with an antenna, like a 3 foot whip, it works. Okay, and we put it inside the vehicle in the mount. And it was, they hadn't ran any of the wiring from the antenna on the outside of the vehicle to the vehicle mount. They hadn't ran any of the connective wiring. They just plugged it into the mount and were like, this should work. And like, if you don't know anything about a radio, maybe you would think that. But how do you be in the military and not know the first thing about a radio? Like, they knew enough to turn it on, and that was the extent of their information. And so it's like these people are a fucking detriment to our ability to conduct ground operations, and we have to play ball with them at the tune of $350,000 a year for the terp who doesn't ever leave the wire, spent most of her time reading 50 Shades of Grey because we just couldn't work with the Jordanians because they were useless. And that's kind of the picture of the GWAT at its peak in 2012, which is like a bunch of lipstick smeared across a bunch of different pigs, and none of the pigs are good for anything.
Yeah, our politicians fuck that one up
But to circle
royally.
it, to tie it into the chapter, time to deploy, and to tie it into all three of our experience, you go in and sit in the recruiter's office, and the first thing you think when you're like, "Yeah, dude, I'm going to join the Marine Corps," the first thing you think as soon as you say, "I'm going to join the Marine Corps," in that time frame is, "I'm going to deploy." And so you get to deployment, which is more mythical than the fleet. For real. If Maynard, you ain't even seen that unicorn. You know what I mean? I'm not making fun. It's literally more mythical than the fleet. I went to the fleet and had to wait 2 years in a non-deployable unit to get a fake tooth to finally deploy. And I go on deployment, and the content of the deployment is working with Jordanians that are fucking illiterate, and then getting people in my company, give people in my platoon getting maimed and killed because our our supporting troops don't want to sweep with their mine detectors because they're scared because it's scary or whatever. And the battalion doesn't want to ensure that we have ISR assets on station. Well, you got a blimp, use the blimp, you know. And then we get extended, and the fucking White House doesn't want to give us fucking grenades. Like, they don't want to give us anything they don't absolutely have to give us to do the bare minimum perfunctory level of work, of performance for our new mission set that we didn't fucking ask for. Our new mission set that happened because a bunch of Harriers got turned into ash. And so it's like tying it back into the chapter, tying it back into the broader discussion. Like, you think you're going out to grab a unicorn by the horn, and instead you're just grabbing a donkey by the fucking dildo that's hot glued to its forehead. Like, what have I even got my hands on? Why does it smell like that? It's so slippery.
Yeah, I remember before both deployments, but before the first deployment, my dad asking, "Are we gonna win? Are you guys gonna win out there?" And it was like, "Of course. What the
Did he
hell?"
turn the volume down on his episode of fucking Howdy Doody?
Yeah, like
He's like, "We're Patriots."
what kind of question is that? Are we gonna win? And then you get out there and it's like, what in the hell is going on? But still, even on my first deployment, I was like, this seems a little bit messed up. I probably am just interpreting this wrong. Yeah, the Afghans do suck, but I mean, there's no way what's happening is really what's happening. There's no way I got this wrong. But first deployment, there we go, Helmand province, and then it's just a shit show.
You get this tiny scope, this super narrow scope of what the war in Afghanistan is like. You're like, maybe it's just my battalion's mission is a big fucking mess. maybe there's other units that what the television is saying to mom and dad is the truth for these other units. Like the partner forces are real pipe hitters and they're really accomplishing objectives and yak yak yak. And then you go to like the vehicle graveyard on any large base and you're like, Jesus Christ, there's my entire city's worth of homes, dollar value in vehicles that people have just wantonly crashed, like partner forces have wantonly crashed that are US vehicles, or like gear that's just been trashed by partner forces that we lent it to, or God forbid, American units that treat their gear like shit, because there was a fucking ton of that too.
Yeah, let me just bring this back. We talked about the gunny sickle. So this is it was an Afghan scythe taped onto the tip of a pole, and the Marines would lay on their bellies and drag it across the ground to pick up IED wires, det cord, ignition wires, things like that. That's what Americans are doing, and then you have your partner forces that, they're either high all the time, they don't leave the base, or if they do leave the base, they're not in any way combat effective. Um, but all the while, was being sold to the American people that progress is being made. Afghans are doing good, but I mean, it was one every battle, every district was seized and won with Americans laying on their fucking bellies, dragging metal sticks across the ground to find IEDs. More to come.
In some of your chapters that we'll talk about next episode, you make lemonade out of lemons, and you have some impact on SOPs that the Marine Corps will probably use in the future and for generations to come. And from my personal experience, I wanted to jump in there too with you. Not all militaries are the same. There could be a large military on paper, but just from my experience of training with like the Filipino Army, the Thai Army, in Marine Corps, or the Thai Marine Corps, and then the Malaysians and Indonesians, they may have a military, but it is not the same. And to think that maybe if you're not in the military, it wouldn't make sense, but the dysfunction of these other militaries is insane. Like it's just that it's a wonder they don't die just showing up on their own. I mean, and there was just some of my experience. Like they had some bad gear, like shooting old stuff and mortar rounds just fizzling out of the tube and landing like a few feet away. And you're like, oh my God, this is what the fuck. And they're drunk a lot. Like the good order and discipline is not, I don't know. The U.S. military, and we can criticize it all we want, but from my experience, we're far above everybody else I have ever worked with.
It's
Not
not
even close.
by no means is it a criticism, anything I've ever said, a criticism of like the dudes that are whooping it on. It's the dysfunction in the US military is that we have this disparate groups in the legislature that want vastly different things. If the military was serious about taking Helmand in 2010 and controlling Afghanistan with Helmand as sort of the belt buckle we're holding on to Afghanistan by, we would have seized the Kajaki Dam and turned the electricity off for all of Helmand on day one and said, you can have electricity back when you guys fucking act right. And we did seize the Kajaki Dam, and we did have the ability to turn electricity off from day one, and they just never did. They never utilized, they never leveraged the correct strategic assets that Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force had fought and fucking got sent home in metal boxes for to win the war. They said, "Well, we'll see if we could do it like this. We'll see if we could do it by giving 10 billion fucking dollars to some NGO to provide transgender flags to the embassy in Kabul." Like we could the belt buckle of Afghanistan, if you want to consider Helmand as like the center of gravity for illicit economic gain and opportunity in Afghanistan. That belt buckle we could have dragged that country around by was the Kajaki hydroelectric power system. And they could have leveraged that to control Helmand, and you could have leveraged the control of Helmand to other provinces as well, and they just never did. And it's just glaringly simple, but the too many bleeding hearts or whatever you want to call
No,
it
it's
would be
true.
like, well, now their hospital doesn't have power. That's a damn shame. They should act right. Just a
Yeah,
pro
and
tip.
Look at what happened over the weekend. When the military can just do what it needs to do, we can literally fly into a country and steal a president out of his fucking own bed
Good or
and get
bad,
back.
good or
It's
bad, like it or not, we
yeah.
can do it.
I mean, just think about it. When the politicians aren't involved, that's what can happen. And the Kajaki Dam too. It's talked about in the book and later episode or in later chapters. It was a USA or USAID project, right?
Is
Yep.
yeah, USAID Army Corps of Engineers in the 1950s
Oh my
put
God.
this hydroelectric. And then the Soviets were going to upgrade the turbines, and I think they delivered them and they didn't install them. And then USAID and the Army Corps of Engineers were going to upgrade the turbines, and I think they installed one. It's just a stupid shit show.
There's a lesson to be learned just about that. Maybe we just shouldn't be helping motherfuckers out just to be helping motherfuckers out. You know?
It's not
Oh
very
God.
neighborly of you.
This could be a lesson learned. I mean, it's like the same thing in Vietnam. We help Ho Chi Minh, learn how to fight the Japanese, teach them everything about guerrilla warfare. Boy, that sure played out good for us. We fucking shoot ourselves in the foot. Whatever we're doing like 20, 30 years in the past is usually what we're like dealing with, like the bad part, like 30 years down or like down the road. I mean, we fuck it up all the time.
The chickens come home to roost, big dog.
You all got to see it. I mean, it has to be like mind blowing, like when you're there and you're like, we helped them out a long time ago. And now here we are. Like we fucking built them up just to have to go to war with them.
What Clark was saying about the dam, lessons learned from that, what you were saying about Ho Chi Minh and helping people out, certain groups out, certain factions here and there, and Maynard, what you were saying about not every military being the same. That's a part of why I'm really excited about the podcast is to interview veterans and maintain or preserve that institutional knowledge, and then also let the American people know some of the ridiculous foreign policy decisions that, lead us to going back to that country 30 years later and doing this and that. So, yeah, we'll get more into the Kajaki Dam, that importance, and then just how Helmand Province shook out in some later episodes.
Yeah, and so that's going to conclude this episode. When we return on the next episode, we're going to dive into your first deployment to Afghanistan. You did some cool shit there, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But we'll pick it up next time. Boys, you have a good night.
All right, fellas, be good or don't. It's up to you.
The War Business Podcast is brought to you by Matthew Bruneman, Brendan Clark, and Dakota Maynard. Editing by Stephanie Maynard. The theme song is California Wind by Bruno E. The War Business Podcast cover art is the copyrighted property of the War Business Podcast. The book, War Business, The Hired Guns of Helmand Province, is copyrighted by Wargate Books. Wargate Books is not responsible or liable for any material or conversations produced and expressed by the War Business Podcast.